weeks away, and a lot of people think, and I tend to agree with them, that this could be the make or break moment in the campaign for the White House. So we'll talk about it. The upcoming debates offer President Trump his best chance to shift momentum in an election campaign he appears to be losing, but some signs don't augur well. Well, let me first of all say that is the words of the Hill publication, not mine, because I don't see that Donald Trump appears to be losing. Now, I understand what they're talking about is based on the polling. I'm not necessarily disputing the polls, but I think that there is a 5 to 10 point variation in these polls in favor of Trump. And we've seen that over the course of polling for Trump all along. Going back to 2016, they were wrong. I'm not necessarily saying they're wrong. The most important thing to take away from this is do not take anything for granted. I've told you this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. If you hadn't heard it, you need to listen and lean in right now, because this is one of my axioms I learned from my dear old late father, who was a very active political figure here in the state of Florida. What we need to do for Donald Trump is campaign for him like he's 2 votes behind, and the next 2 people you see are going to put him over the top. See, I have no doubt that Donald Trump is going to do his job. He's the hardest working president, the hardest working campaigner I think I've ever seen, especially at the national level. So Donald Trump, in spite of the pandemic, is doing his part. And I'm not saying you're not doing yours. I'm simply saying no matter what the polls say, no matter what happens in the upcoming debate, right up until the day after Election Day, and we might have to go even further depending on what happens, we need to do our part. So if you are for President Trump, campaign like he's 2 votes behind, and the next 2 people you see going to put him over the top. And when it comes to this polling, I've said this before as well, what you really need to look at is trend lines, because polling varies wildly. It's harder to poll with cell phones and social media and all the things that are now, and people don't respond well, especially to President Trump. There's a fear factor. All of that kind of stuff makes polling, in fairness to the pollsters, a bit more difficult than it used to be. So to me, the more important thing is to look at trend lines. And I'm not necessarily talking about that average of polling. It's like, look at any poll or groups of polls. Where were they at one point and where are they now? And clearly, and I don't think there's any dispute in this whatsoever, the polls are trending in Donald Trump's favor. In other words, where it showed Biden having a 10-point lead, he now has maybe a 3-point lead. There really aren't any polls that show President Trump leading, but the trend line is absolutely moving in his favor, and that is very, very important. But take nothing for granted. Back to the article. Past incumbent presidents have struggled, especially in their first debate, yet Team Trump has insisted the president does not need specific preparations for his clashes with Democratic opponent Joe Biden. And they're right about that. A lot of incumbent presidents have struggled in their first debate. They cite a few examples we'll get to in a moment. And there is this critique, if you will, and it's true, whether or not it's justified is another story, that Donald Trump, by his own admission, is not really doing traditional debate prep. In other words, he's not isolating himself at Camp David or somewhere like that and having a Joe Biden challenger and they go back and forth. Donald Trump has not really done any of that, I don't think, even back in 2016, and he's not doing it now. Is that a legitimate criticism? It is, in the sense that it breaks tradition. But Donald Trump, it breaks tradition on a minute-to-minute basis, does he not? And most of us love him for that. But I just say, let Trump be Trump. That's the greatest thing. I would say to all his handlers, and it appears that they are, just let Donald Trump be Trump. It kind of reminds me of that scene from Braveheart where the Scottish guys are getting ready to face their first really big battle, and they ask Mel Gibson's character, well, what do we do? And he says, just be yourselves. And I would play those clips for you, but I get in trouble for that. But I'm a movie buff, but hey, we move on. Campaign spokesman Tim Martaw said he, talking about Donald Trump, is preparing for debates by running the country as president. I don't know that any actual debate prep has occurred to this point, and I don't know of what plans are to begin that. And let me just say, President Trump doesn't need to practice being under fire. The man is under fire at all times. I mean, this guy, look at this picture. This is kind of a famous picture. Of course, this is in Canada at the G7. I think one of his first G7, perhaps his very first one. And Donald Trump is being surrounded by old Merkel and all the EU leaders. Donald Trump has been in the gauntlet since before he actually took office, man. The whole campaign, leading, and president-elect and everything else. So I don't think Donald Trump has any problem being challenged. And they kind of make a point of this, and we'll expand on it in a moment, that he's not challenged by people around him. And there's some truth to that, but not challenged is not true at all. They said, the article says that kind of attitude has spelled trouble for previous commanders in chief. In other words, those who basically didn't prepare well for the first debate, just took it for granted that they were going to do well. It has not done well for them. And there's some truth to that. But it says previous commanders in chief. Here's the thing. Donald Trump is not like any previous commanders in chief. I mean, even those that love Donald Trump and those that hate Donald Trump, one thing we have in common is I think we would agree that Donald Trump is not like any other president we have ever had. And there are many of us, like me and Billy Bob. If you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, he's Billy Bob Bass. Got a Twitter handle at Billy Bob Bass 1. Mine is at John Martin Talks. Check us out there. We try to repost the show there as well. But as Billy Bob says, man, the fish whisperer. I'm the fish whisperer, Billy Bob. We're not traditional here. And Donald Trump dang sure ain't traditional. And those of us that are MAGA hat wearing or dregs of society like myself, we love him for that. And other people hate him for that or just can't figure it out. But the fact that Donald Trump is not your average president is a good thing. And he's not going to do the average thing, that's for sure. Then they give some examples of incumbent presidents who struggled in their first debate. The first one they give is about Obama. Then President Obama unnerved his supporters with a noticeably weak showing against GOP challenger Mitt Romney in their first 2012 debate, while former presidents George W. Bush and Reagan also struggled in their first encounters against John Kerry and Walter Mondale. And there is some truth about that. And here's something that just kind of popped in my head a couple of days ago, and I don't think I've said it on the show yet. Talking about like Obama and Mitt Romney. Now, I supported Mitt Romney. Now, originally, he was definitely, with no doubt, not my first choice, without a doubt. I mean, he just wasn't, man. But when push came to shove, I supported Romney. In fact, I don't regret supporting him under the circumstances, but I regret on my radio show I used to have, I actually said Mitt Romney may be one of the finest people that has ever actually run for president. And boy, was I buffaloed about that. But this idea that Trump has to prepare like other presidents is just wrong. But here's the thing about it. This is what popped in my, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Billy Bob says, get her back, boy. Well, here's something I thought. Every race, going back like Obama and Mitt Romney, pretty much every presidential race, even when I've supported people that ultimately lost, in my heart, I kind of knew who was going to win. I looked at it and I just kind of knew who was going to win. And and I didn't necessarily say it publicly because if sometimes it was my guy that wasn't going to win. But I just kind of knew who was going to win. And I felt that way of Obama against McCain and Obama against Romney. I just felt like Obama was going to win. I worked hard to defeat him, especially with Romney. I worked hard but I just felt he was going to win. I kind of knew Reagan was going to win, even as the incumbent. I knew he was going to. I say all that to say this. I feel the same way right now about President Trump. I don't want to take nothing for granted, so I know that's kind of contradictory, but I just feel like he's going to win. He just seems to be peaking at the right time. Am I saying, like I say, don't take it for granted? I just feel it, and I've usually been right. I can't remember ever not being right about that. But This debate, let me just tell you, this first debate, is really about Joe Biden, period. It really is. It's not about Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't need to perform well, but the bar has been set pretty low for Biden. The main thing people are going to be looking at, because they know Donald Trump and they halfway think they know Joe Biden, but the Trump campaign and really the reality of the thing is Biden has been portrayed, whether it's right or wrong, he's been portrayed as slipping. Not put his politics aside for a moment. He's been portrayed as slipping, and I think he clearly is. So I really believe the vast majority of Americans are going, if there are any of them that are undecided or any of them that are like, mildly, because there aren't any passionate Joe Biden supporters. I haven't seen any yet. Maybe his wife is, I'm not sure. But the first debate is really going to be about, can Joe Biden survive? And if he survives it in a sense that he doesn't have a total brain fart meltdown and a dementia moment, that kind of thing, then he's probably going to be projected as the winner, because the media is going to try to project Joe Biden as the winner, even if he has to be wheeled out in a wheelchair with drool coming down his face. So this thing is about Joe Biden, period. The most common explanation, back to the article, is that, and by the way, I meant to tell you, my first choice in that Romney race was Ron Paul. So that probably tells you a little bit about myself. The most common explanation is that sitting presidents, grown accustomed to agreement from those around them, can find themselves out of practice at rebutting direct attacks. And I agree with that 100%, but Donald Trump is the exception to that. Because as I said earlier, and I think you'd have to agree, even if you hate Donald Trump, that the man has been challenged and attacked from the beginning. I mean, all you got to do is go back and look at, we played this video before, but it certainly deserves replay. This is Nancy Pelosi back when she was talking about impeaching the president, whether they should or shouldn't, literally admitting that they've been trying to impeach the president since before he even took office. Check it out.
One of the biggest criticisms of the process has been the speed at which the House Democrats are moving. If this is, but seriously though, seriously.
It's been going on for 22 months, okay? 2.5 years, actually.
There has been some criticism, though, I will say, about whether or not you should move forward before the end of the year or wait for the courts. Why do you think now is the time to move?
Well, I think we're not moving with speed. This, was it 2.5 years ago that they initiated the Mueller investigation?
That's good enough. And you got to keep in mind that the time frame she's saying that 2.5 years ago, basically, she's talking about literally before the president even got his feet wet as president, they were trying to impeach him. The Mueller investigation, by Pelosi's own admission right there, and that's why I tell you, one of my axioms is take these progressives at their word. She tells you that the Mueller report was designed to impeach President Trump. So they've been trying to impeach him. He's been under attack since day one and really before. And the article says there are other signs that spell potential trouble for Trump. Now, one of the things that's really interesting to me is the spin that they put on these on these various coverages. Donald Trump just had, and we're going to talk more in depth about it in a minute, but Donald Trump just got off of a town hall deal on ABC News with George Stephanopoulos. And they basically say that he did poorly. Now, I said in my show a couple of days ago that I actually thought Donald Trump did very well. I would ask you to go and actually look at that video. It's about an hour and a half long. I'm sure you can pull it up on YouTube. And then check out John Martin YouTube, by the way. Spell it all the way out. John Martin Talks. And give us a few more likes, shares, and subscriptions there. We'd really appreciate it. But the spin was that Donald Trump did poorly. And the opposite on Biden. When was the last time that the media said, oh, Biden flubbed that one? I mean, Biden could literally be up there going, well, I'm here with my wife, my sister. I mean, doesn't know his wife from his sister. And the media doesn't even mention him. If anything, they make a joke of it or whatever. They never play anything where Biden is absolutely flubbing. They always say that he did great. Go back and look, for instance, at his acceptance speech at the Democratic National Convention. It was terrible. He actually flubbed it multiple times, And this is another thing that lets you know that Biden is out of it mentally, because if you watch him speak, he obviously is reading the teleprompter all the time, but he talks like this. He says he has no inflection in his voice, no emotion, no anything. He simply talks like this. And that lets me know that he is struggling. He's using all his mental capacity to focus on the words. The meaning of them doesn't matter. There's no passion in anything he says unless it's off the cuff, just attacking Donald Trump. He does that okay, and even that he flubs up. But go back and look at any of the speeches. Here's a challenge for you. Go look at any speech that Biden has done, watch the actual speech, and then try to find the mainstream media coverage. You will see that you're watching two totally different things, because they take segments where Biden is a bit coherent, and I say a bit, and they play that and they make it sound like that's what the speech was. I want to show you a video right now of Joe Biden. I think he was in Florida just the other day, and this shows you just how canned he is, because he's getting out of an airplane, and I guarantee you they're telling him, okay, the first thing you need to do, Joe, is wave to the crowd. The problem is, when it comes to crowd, there ain't one. Check it out.
For president in this race is walking off the plane, arriving in Florida just moments ago. Former Vice President Joe Biden. He's there to try to court Latino voters. Polls are showing President Trump is making gains.
I mean, I love the woman in the background. That's the cleanest video I could find. He literally comes out and he waves, and there's no one there. No one. And he's waving to them, and he's not like even stunned by it. I doubt he even noticed it. He's just doing what he's told. And here's the thing. If you watch any of the videos of Biden, he walks out of the plane. Now, in fairness, it's not like walking out of Air Force One, and I hope he doesn't ever get the chance to actually do that. But he walks out of the plane, and he literally goes straight to the car. He doesn't, he's just focused on that, because they don't, he looks like an old man who is just focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. I'm just calling it as I see it. Back to the article. His performance in an ABC, talking about Donald Trump here, his performance in an ABC News special moderated by George Stephanopoulos on Tuesday evening was halting. I didn't find it that way at all. You watch it and tell me what you think. Chime in on whatever Facebook page or in the YouTube channel. I will respond to you as quickly as I possibly can. The appearance came, talking about Mr. Trump on ABC News, the appearance came in the wake of two other recent interviews where Trump performed poorly, they say, with Jonathan Swain of Axios and Chris Wallace of Fox News. Now, as I say, I thought he did pretty well on the ABC thing. With Chris Wallace and this Axios deal, I did watch those, and Trump was a little bit taken aback a couple times because the moderator was attacking him from the very beginning. They never look at Joe Biden. Just I think yesterday, Joe Biden had a press conference, if you will. He was sitting down and he took 5 questions, and he literally had the cue cards there from reporters that they handpicked and said, okay, these are the 5 questions and the 5 reporters. That is what Joe Biden does. Has Joe Biden had any confrontational interviews at all? Even Chris Wallace has said, hey, come on the show, and he's been sketchy about that. Joe Biden doesn't even get a follow-up question. As I've told you before, the follow-up question is the most important question, because any politician worth their salt on the opening question is going to say whatever they want to say and get their message out. It's the follow-up question that puts that person on the spot. And Joe Biden, I don't think he's got one, period. So I don't know that President Trump did as bad as they're claiming he did in that. The coverage was very bad and always paints a poor picture of the president. But Chris Wallace, will be the moderator of the first presidential debate set for Cleveland on September 29th, so right around the corner. The first debate tends to attract the biggest audience of 3 presidential clashes. I hope there are 3. We'll see. I hope there's at least one. And they're right. The first one is usually the most well watched. But Chris Wallace, is no friend of Donald Trump. I can tell you that. He is not really even conservative in my view. he's more like his dad, and he's not near as good as his father. I actually think Chris Wallace goes out of his way, because he's on Fox News, to actually attack Donald Trump a little bit more, and conservatives in general, so he can kind of put out this virtue signaling to his peers in the mainstream media that, hey, I'm one of you guys. That's what I see. Maybe I'm wrong. You tell me what you think about it. But let me just tell you this, and this is going to go right to President Trump. As I've seen a lot of people complain about the moderators that have been chosen and all, and I agree with you. As I said earlier, Chris Wallace is no friend to the president. But to me, all of that is actually irrelevant. I think if you're focusing on the fact that the mainstream media is not going to be kind to Donald Trump, well, there's no great enlightenment there. We've known that for 3.5, really 4 years, because even before he became president, that isn't going to change. It's not going to change in his second term. So it just is what it is. This is all going to be up to President Trump. It's going to fall on his shoulders to take the fight and expose Joe Biden and expose him for what he is. I take no joy in that, but he needs to create a meltdown moment for Joe Biden. I'm just saying. And as I said earlier, and I think this is absolutely true, that the bar, and President Trump and his campaign is a little guilty of this, set the bar so low for Biden that if he gets out of there without a major, like literally wheeled out with drool coming out of his mouth, they're going to declare him the winner, and Biden may not debate again if the poll numbers stay up. Aaron Kale, director of debate at the University of Michigan and the editor and co-author of a book on Trump's debate performance. Man, there are books on everything. I guess I need to write a book about something, man. If you want to chime in, tell me what you want me to write a book about, man. I mean, I need a big advance, though. Said were particular challenges for sitting presidents. And he's right about that. As I say, Donald Trump is not your typical sitting president. But he said this, Mr. Aaron Call said, incumbent presidents are surrounded by sycophantic aides, basically yes men, who don't challenge them, and we have certainly seen that in the Trump presidency. There's some truth to that. I mean, Donald Trump values loyalty. And we don't really get to see what's behind the scenes, whether or not he's being challenged behind the scenes. I don't think Donald Trump could have been successful as a business person if he was afraid to hear the truth. Because in business, you better be able to hear the truth, the bottom line. And maybe his kids can tell him. I don't know. I just know this, and I was talking with my daughter just the other day about this, talking about her grandmother, my late mother. One thing she said all the time, you do not air your dirty laundry in public. And she says, we don't criticize each other in public. We don't challenge each other in public. You can say behind the scenes whatever you want, but in public, and she made this very clear, we're going to present a unified front as a family in public at all times, no exceptions. That was my mom, and she'd knock you upside the head if you didn't go along with that. And I suspect Donald Trump is like that. Behind the scenes, I suspect, because I don't think he could be a successful business person, let alone president, if he didn't do that. But he doesn't put up with challenges. He wants a loyal front, and I don't blame him for that whatsoever. But the author here, Mr. Kale, says no one in the administration can say you didn't do very well in the ABC town hall last night. See, but here, I'm not sure that's true, but here's the bottom line on that. They don't have to tell him that, because everybody and their brother is telling him that on the news every single night, 24/7, man. I mean, think about this. We had a historic signing, what they call the Abraham Accords, the first Mideast peace agreements, 2 in a week when we hadn't had but 2 in 70 years. And the mainstream media poo-pooed that, played it down. The best they could say is it was a very historic day. But they didn't give Donald Trump one bit of credit for that at all. And they downplayed it. Every bit of the mainstream media, maybe with the exception of Fox, downplayed that. So President Trump's never going to get a break from the press. That's why you got to tune into shows like John Martin Talks here. That's why you got to look at it like program or networks like America's Voice News. We're broadcast live on their Facebook page. Good morning, howdy, how are you? But we're rebroadcast along their streaming services as a late night show. You can check out that. It's called America's Voice News. There are free apps on Android, iPhone. They stream on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, on channel 219, Dish Network, and on the Pluto channel as well. So we are nationwide. Worldwide and Universal, John Martin Talks to America's Voice News. You should definitely give them a try if you want some actual real coverage of Donald Trump besides just the mainstream media's crap. But Ann Compton here, who is a reporter, this is another person that's commenting on this, took part in 2 presidential debates over a 40-year career, said she thought the disadvantage for an incumbent might be overstated. And I think they definitely are with Donald Trump. Compton said, I think it's more to do with where the candidate is in the election cycle and how he or she is doing in the polls. I told you the trend lines are going for Donald Trump. Did you see that polling? A couple big polls came out that are very interesting. One we talked in depth about on our podcast. Check it out. You can go to all the different ways I told you. And oh, by the way, in order to keep doing this, like I tell you all the time, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support fighters. And what we need you to do to support the show is go directly to our sponsorship link. It's in the description of our show, above the video, wherever you're watching. Big Daddy Unlimited, factory direct pricing on anything to do with Second Amendment, guns, ammo, you name it, direct to your door. And check that out. But she said it depends on where they are in a cycle. As I tell you, the trend lines are going for Trump. Oh, and these polling, I want to tell you, the one that there are 2 jumped out at me. One is in Florida about Hispanics are going for Donald Trump, which if that holds true, he wins Florida and probably wins the presidency doing that. But one of them that's not getting a lot of coverage is there was a poll with gay men, LGBT community or whatever, and 47% of gay men actually came out in the poll. Think about it. Came out in the poll and said they support Donald Trump. 47% of gay men. Would you have really thought that? Now, I understand that Donald Trump, I mean, as I told you before, to understand people, you got to understand certain core things. And really, what explains Donald Trump, I think, the most is that he's a businessman. And basically, he wants you to make money. He wants to make money, but he wants you to make money as well. And if you really want to understand Donald Trump, especially politically, he believes that if you've got money in your pocket, you can figure all the rest out. Your religion, your sexual partners, all that kind of stuff. You can figure all of that out on your own. You don't need him to tell you that stuff. He feels like if he can make you fat and happy, then and money, race, all that stuff, you can figure it all out on your own if you got money in your pocket. And if you don't, here's the opposite of that. If you don't have money in your pocket, you probably can't think of nothing else except where your next bill's going to come from. And that kind of divides us quite a bit here. But 47% of gay men said that they support Donald Trump. I thought that was pretty interesting here. But it says here that rather than an incumbent president who might have been sheltered, so in other words, surrounded by yes men, Donald Trump, and I feel very confident about this, he is the least sheltered president I think we've ever had. I mean, there's no way to keep Donald Trump in a bubble, man. He's a bubble buster. He goes out. I mean, what other president have you seen that actually responds to what I call the shout line? He's walking to like Marine One or across the lawn and reporters are shouting out questions. No president responds to that, and normally they shouldn't. They're advised, hey, just ignore them, maybe wave, salute at the Marine, and get in the copter, man. Donald Trump will stop in the middle, in mid-tracks, and hold a 30 or 45-minute press conference impromptu. Do you really think Joe Biden could do that? Joe Biden gets out of the plane and like waves at the empty field and goes right to the SUV, man. I mean, there is no way Biden could do that. Donald Trump does it, man. But President Trump, see, here's the thing, too. I hadn't said this in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. I'm not worried about President Trump. If he loses the election, I'm not worried about Donald Trump. You know, Biden may never come out of the bunker if he loses his election. But Donald Trump's going to be fine, man. So what's going to happen to Donald Trump if he loses the election? Sure, his ego will be hurt, but I'm sure hanging out with Melania and Barron and the rest of his kids will probably help him. He'd probably play a little bit more golf, all that kind of stuff. I mean, Donald Trump was living a cushier life as you could possibly live when he ran for president. So you're going to punish him like throwing him in that briar patch, throw him back to luxury resorts all over the world. I'm not even the least bit worried about President Trump. Maybe his ego might be bruised, that kind of thing. And I understand nobody likes to lose, especially Donald Trump. Who we need to worry about if Donald Trump loses is not him and his family, but the rest of us, man, who are going to be stuck with a Harris-Biden presidency or whatever. I mean, by their own admission, we played that yesterday. But so I'm not worried about Donald Trump. His opponent, they're talking about, meanwhile, will have debate. And this part really gets me. Check this out. They're talking about Joe Biden here. It says his opponent, meanwhile, will have debated as recently as March, whereas Trump was last on the debate stage October 26th. So they're talking about what I call the Bernie bow down, where Bernie just basically said, I don't really want to be president. Here you go, Joe. Take it away and let me hide in the Trojan horse, and, I'll be behind the scenes. I mean, Bernie basically bowed down. Joe Biden hadn't been in a serious debate where he actually came out on top, except for the bow down, in his whole career. I mean, go back and tell me which debate Joe Biden won during 2020. Show me a debate other than the Bernie bow down that Biden ever won. I mean, before he won in South Carolina, the guy had never won a primary or a caucus, hadn't even come close, and wasn't even going to be close until he was rescued by James Clyburn in South Carolina. So this idea that somehow Biden is more prepared for the debate is ludicrous, especially when you look at the man that's really before us now. Still, Compton argued that the opinions are so polarized about Trump that it could be hard for the debates to shift views much one way or another. That is likely true, but that's why I think that the president in this first debate has got to expose Donald Trump. He definitely ain't going to bow down like Bernie did. He must make this election about Joe Biden, the man. Because Trump derangement syndrome is real, and you're not going to change those hearts and minds. But he's got to make sure that his base feels confident. I think they will, no matter what. I don't expect Donald Trump to do poorly. But he's got to make this election about Joe Biden, the man himself, and his issues as well. But if this election ever gets to be about Joe Biden, it's over. Because people will take an honest assessment. And President Trump, and this goes probably without saying, he can't expect any help from the media whatsoever, including Chris Wallace. But Compton went on to say, in a divided county, I think she said country here, that's a misprint. In a divided country, the president is doing exactly what his most fervent believers want him to do. That's true. In clashes with interviews or political opponents, and for those who are on the fence, it cements the idea that his kind of leadership is not what they consider best for the United States. I don't know if I agree with that. They're trying to say he's unpresidential. Joe Biden has made it pretty clear, and Kamala Harris did the same thing. We played him yesterday. We're just going to play this snippet of Joe Biden basically has a brain fart, and probably a Freudian slip, as they say, a clarion moment, where he actually says what's really happening. Check it out.
Administration is going to relaunch that effort and keep pushing. Harris-Biden administration is going to relaunch that effort.
Biden administration. And there's another video that was a few days before that where Kamala Harris said the same thing, a Harris-Biden administration. And she went on to say that features Joe Biden as president. It's basically admitting that he is a puppet, a prop figure, a Trojan horse, I think is more accurate, like VP Pence said. But you want to know how divided we truly are in this country? I mean, there's one meme I was going to show. Hopefully, if you want to see a kind of a funny meme of Joe Biden in his wheelchair chasing hair, that looks like how he may come out of the first debate. But other than that, if he stands up, they're going to declare him the winner. But how you want to know how divided, ladies and gentlemen, we are? And this does not do my heart. We are clearly a divided nation, and I think the president addressed some of this yesterday in a press conference when he said we've got to get back to teaching American exceptionalism, patriotism, about how great America is to our children. And he's right about that, because we're losing that battle on a daily basis. And the fact that they're doing it like through Zoom meetings now, I mean, these teachers are a piece of work, man. But you want to know how divided we are? This next story kind of paints it. Depending on how you look at this story, I think clearly divides us. And this is about Mike Ditka. Mike Ditka, NFL Hall of Fame player and coach, Super Bowl champion coach with the Chicago Bears, and just an incredible tight end, long career. He's been getting bashed for something. He doubled down. He said this a couple of years ago when the kneeling protests first started, basically called it un-American. And he recently doubled down on it on the new wokeness of the NFL, and he's being blasted by certain circles. So to me, he should be held as a hero. And I got to tell you, I think I said this at the top of the show, a little biased. I love Mike Ditka as a player, and I respect him as a man. So I'm very biased, I guess, in that sense. But Mike Ditka, this is from a publication called Yard Barker, which is a sports deal. Mike Ditka called out for blasting players who kneeled during the anthem. Mike Ditka once again this week condemned NFL players who opt to kneel during the national anthem to protest police brutality, social injustice, and systematic racism, and the Hall of Famer is receiving some pushback. They say his harsh rhetoric. Is it hard? Since when did it become harsh to say that you should stand up for the flag and the national anthem? Did you see where, I think it was in Ohio, where just recently two football players that were playing on the same team, one of them's father was a firefighter and the other one was a police officer, and they came running out for the opening even though they were warned not to. They came out for their home opener in high school. One was waving the American flag and the other one was waving that blue version for police officers. They got suspended for waving the dadgum American flag at a football game. That is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the Joe Biden progresso world they're trying to come. I'm telling you right now, progresso world is at our doorstep. And if we elect Joe Biden, it is going to be, over us in general. And let me tell you, you're not going to like it. Even some of you so-called progressives who think you're going to like it, you're not going to like it. Look at what happened to Trotsky. I'm just saying. But harsh rhetoric, patriotism is now harsh. The NFL's evolving stance, back to the article, on peaceful pregame protests such as kneeling during the anthem or alternatively remaining in the locker rooms during playing was in full display in week one. It says their evolving stance. They're not evolved. They caved in. The NFL caved in to pressure, period. That's what they did. They just simply caved in. And beyond caving in, and this is the biggest problem I have, because of the kneeling, I don't like it. I think it is disrespectful. But here's what I say about that. If you have a right to, quote, kneel, then I have a right to turn off the TV. I have a right to tell you I don't like it. The protesting is not a one-way thing. I have a right to protest your protest as well, or at least talk about it. But the biggest issue I have is that the NFL not only caved into the kneeling, but they are actually giving money to Marxist communist organizations in the form of Black Lives Matters and bringing national and worldwide attention to that, an organization that is hell-bent on destroying America. I'm not saying everybody who believes in the idea, the concept of Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about the organization itself is a Marxist communist organization, period. It just is. There's just no other way to look at it. Do your own research. You'll see I'm right. Have the courage to do it if you're a snowflake. Among those who took issue with Ditka's commentary are Baltimore Ravens head coach Jim Harbaugh, who fired back at not only the NFL legend, but also anyone opposed to players kneeling during the anthem. So here's the thing. You can only protest one way. So they can protest and say, oh, it's not disrespectful for the flag. But if I point out that it is disrespectful to the flag, then I'm wrong and they're right. Why can't we both? I mean, don't we have a right to be wrong anymore in this country? So that's something we've forgotten. We actually have a right to be wrong. I don't think we are wrong in saying it's disrespectful, but the protests can only go one way. Mostly peaceful protests, right? Did you ever hear that about a Trump rally? Oh, these are right-wing extremists bringing their trying to... I mean, it's just the coverage is so obvious, it's crazy. But this is what Harbaugh said. He said, I don't know how you can criticize someone for being passionate and for believing in something important to them. Listen to this. They want America to be great and to realize the ideals we were founded on. I don't see that part at all. The ideals we're founded on? They're opposed to the founding fathers. Black Lives Matter is tearing down even statues that are of black people who are actually were opposed to slavery. I mean, give me a break, man. But listen to this again. This is about this statement. It says this is Harbaugh. I want to read it one more time. I don't know how you can criticize someone for being passionate and for believing in something important to them. They want America to be great and to realize the ideals we're founded on. That doesn't describe Black Lives Matter. That describes the MAGA agenda. That describes Trump supporters. That paragraph right there does not remotely describe what is happening in the NFL. It describes people like you and me. So Harbaugh is standing on his head, man. Current free agent wide receiver Dez Bryant, who doesn't have a job, meanwhile took to Twitter to take a much more aggressive stance against Ditka. He couldn't hold Ditka's jockstrap, man. But he might like to, I don't know. But he said, against position Ditka represents. This is what Dez Bryant said. Somebody need, and I'm just reading it as it is, somebody need to go have a sit down with Mike Ditka. No arguing, but explain to him what's going on. Feeling entitled at its finest. Entitled? Entitled to what? I mean, Ditka is telling you that you're not entitled to squat, that you're given the opportunity to be a player and a millionaire, probably, in this case with Dez Bryant, by the grace of God for your athletic ability. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the fact that you live in the freest nation that's ever existed, man. So Ditka's controversial. I want to play something that I've played before, but if I play it again, it deserves replaying. And it's just crazy, man. Let's play John F. Kennedy at his inauguration speech, this famous phrase. Play it.
My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I wish to God that Democratic Party still existed. I'm not saying there aren't some Democrats that don't believe that, but that Democratic Party that JFK came out and said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Man, those words ring pretty hollow for the Democratic Party, but they ring strong for me right now. It's one of the reasons I do the show. I'm doing this for God and country as well. But that Democratic Party, man, is dead and gone. And I don't say that with any joy whatsoever. We're not going to be able to get into this third story because I want to finish up with this one. And I want to read this comment from Ditka, man. This is really spot on, man. Ditka says, you don't like the game, get out of it. And you could apply this to multiple things in this country. He said, it's not for protesting one way or the other. What color you are, what you think, this or that, you play football. That's it. You're privileged. He's not talking about white privilege. He's talking about athletic privilege. You're privileged. You got a gift from God that you can play the game because you got a body you can do it with. Amen. I really don't, he said, I don't really understand what you're protesting. I played the game. I coached the game for a long time. It makes no sense to me. Now, he understands what they're actually protesting. He just doesn't agree with it. But think, man, I wish I had time to read that again. Go back and check this thing out, man. It is unbelievable, man. Spot on from Ditka. How much time I got? I'm pretty much out of time. But Ditka, man, Ditka for president. The way I say, now I'm not. SCOTUS. Let's put, I don't think he'd probably be eligible, but let's put Mike Ditka on the Supreme Court. Add him to your list, President Trump. Man, that is amazing. Ditka, I'm a fan of his, and I agree 100%. And we're all privileged. You know what we have? We don't have white privilege. We got American privilege. We're so blessed and privileged to be in this nation that people are dying still to get here. I mean, I'll just end it with that. I've enjoyed bringing the show to you today. I hope you've enjoyed as much as I have. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it and share it with others. Check out our sponsorship link at the description of our show. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. I think Ditka would agree. We all need to pray for this great nation. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day. Thank you.